Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nut, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our chat room, via our Facebook page, and of course, keep it funky. All right, with that, everyone, welcome to another episode here, episode 103 here on December 12th, 2017 of Stu and the Nun. You got Stu here in the northern studio, and it is north, let me tell you. I'm joined by my good brother from another mother, the Nunn, in the southern studio, where I was just last week. Welcome, Nunn.
Just last week, you came here and ruined our weather. That is correct. We're still recovering, trying to get the heat back here. You know, the day before you got here, I was riding my motorcycle. The day after you got here, it snowed. 100% your fault.
Yeah, I cursed myself because not only did it snow there right before I left Texas, of all places, then I get to Atlanta, and it's snowing there, and when I landed and saw that, I knew I was screwed, and which I was because I spent almost 36 hours there trying to get home, and now I'm back in the northern studio where it is a brisk 17 degrees right now in upstate New York, with about, where I live, about 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground, a lot more in a few other places. Yes. I brought it with me, and it's staying with me, and I need to send it back your way. Done with it. I'm all for the upstate New Yorkers for global part of that group. Just
Yeah, like you're a card-carrying member of global warming for upstate New York.
yes, I was the president of global warming for Alaska when I lived there. So I just started the chapter here. Right now, we're not doing so. Yeah. Anyways, Nunn, good to be back on with you. Even though we're back in our separate studios, I really enjoy being with you when we're together. The show flows much better, I think, and you know, when we don't have to have pause and delay and the technology and all that crap. And I got some great feedback on our show last week. I think it went well, man. We blew through an hour and a half really fast.
Really fast.
Yeah.
We blew through a bottle of Lead Slinger's Rye real fast too during that show.
Well, yes, we did do that too, but you know, that's you know, they got to do. There's got to be something to keep the vibe going. So that
Yeah.
worked
No,
well.
like I mean, it can't be our natural ability.
No, we're actually very shy normally. We are very quiet, shy individuals that don't like to share our opinion. It takes a little alcohol encouragement to make it happen. And anyone that
This could be the truth.
Mhm.
But we
or
gotta
anyone that knows us knows that's not the truth. But anyways, yeah, go ahead.
we got a good show. You know, we've had the neat thing about our show is that we've been able to have people that we've served with uh, in our past on, and tonight it's your turn. We've seemed to have a couple of my guys here recently, so like you're teed up, and we like it. We got a really interesting show tonight, and this is actually a topic that I'm personally like very curious about. I have a lot of questions, so it's nice to have basically, or I don't want to say a subject matter expert, but someone that's definitely well versed and understands like the greater picture, not just a micro but a macro level of this. And because recently I've been going through the application for benefits with the VA, and it's been to say the least, a challenge, both for me and probably for the person across the desk from me. And it's just it's interesting because I had to kind of talk to somebody about you know my mental state, my mental experience, and you know I didn't want to get drunk when I went into that meeting, but I came out of there wanting to get really drunk. You know? So it's interesting how it is. So I'm really curious about tonight's show. So I'm gonna let you handle introductions, since I mean we're gonna be talking to your people.
Yep, we sure will. And before we get started, bringing on our phenomenal guest for tonight, and he I would say he's probably a subject matter expert, more so than you or I on this topic. But I want to talk about, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, our main sponsor, Enlisted Nine Fight Company. Of course, we're sporting our gear, right? Enlisted Nine, Colton Smith and them over there. Really appreciate their support of the show. And of course, a lot of charities we support, and one that's near and dear to both of our hearts, Veteran Outdoors. And you can see that Toby and I are sporting our matching VO hats in green camouflage, kind of in a hint to what our guest is about tonight. A little bit of green out there, and so we got our.
Oh, I see what you did
You
there.
like you see what
I
I
see what
did?
you did there.
Yeah. If you take a look at the post I put up today, the blog post, you will see a picture that is. I don't know if our guest saw it, but it is. It's got. It looks like regular BDU woodland camouflage, except it has a few other patterns in it. I found that picture I thought was quite appropriate. But yeah, so we're sporting our VO hats, fine looking hats, veteran outdoors hats, blaze orange in case you go hunting, which we got about another week here in New York of hunting, and we got our List 9 Fight Company shirts on. So with all that said, I want to welcome on our guest. He is an old friend of mine. I don't know if he called me his friend back in the day, but I loved all my soldiers, and they were all my friends. And I was like the dude in stripes. I was the big toe for them. That was it. I was just Sergeant Hookah. But good friend, Sergeant First Class retired, so now just John McDonald, Mr. John McDonald. Welcome, John, to the show, Stu and the Nun.
Hello, everyone. And don't let Stu fool you. He wasn't the big nice guy whenever he was my first section sergeant in Gruntland. So,
Oh, I wasn't really. I don't. I try to remember back to those days. I just remember lots of happiness and rainbows and unicorns. It wasn't still that way or not.
well, you made me a lot stronger. I guess that's a good way to put it.
Well, I'm sure physically and mentally. And well, see, I was doing my part. You just kind of like a parent with their kid. When I'm about to whip them, it's going to hurt you more than it hurts me. It's kind of the same way.
Right. Okay.
So, so when you're doing all those push-ups, it was hurting me more than it hurt you. Didn't feel it.
Yeah, I hate it when you get the
But I
stitches in the
really
right
think it
from
hurt you.
laughing too hard. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm. That's it. We did have a lot of good times. So John and I go way back to the early '90s, early to mid '90s. We served together in Alaska, and the mighty Geronimo's 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, the only airborne battalion at the time in the Pacific Theater, probably still the only airborne battalion in the Pacific Theater. Arctic warriors as we were, and John, as you can see, retired, so he went on, stayed in. I must not have done too bad. I didn't break him or scare him away, and build a career. I want to thank you for your service, John. I want to thank you not only for your friendship, but also serving your country for 20 plus years, because that's a lot more than 99% of the other.
Well, it was a good job, and it helped me grow up as a person too. So,
Yeah, so let's talk about that job. Let's give our listeners and viewers a little bit about your military background. You had quite a variety of a background in your military service, and if you wouldn't mind, just give them a little bit of overview.
well, I started in '92. As Stu had said earlier, I joined as 11 Charlie, a mortar maggot. Went to Alaska and they beat me up. I couldn't hang. I wasn't as tough as Stu was. So I changed my MOS. I became a Black Hawk crew chief, and that's what I did for basically the rest of my career with 1 2 year stint as a drill sergeant at Fort Relaxin Jackson.
2 years,
So
2 years as a drill sergeant.
Nice.
say
How
again.
2 years as a drill sergeant? How was that at Fort Jackson? How did that shape your career or alter it? Did it or did it? How was that? I guess.
It taught me I had to watch my mouth a lot more than I was doing at the time.
Now, did you have female recruits? I'm assuming since you were at Fort Jackson, not Fort Benning.
Well, at the time, I was actually going through a particularly horrible divorce, so I didn't really enjoy the female persuasion. So they used me a lot with the female trainees.
Oh, okay. So you were Sergeant Tommy Toughnuts then on them, and we're we're shaping them up, making them stronger, right?
I would probably go to jail now for the stuff that I said back then. Yeah, that's how tough I was.
I think all of us would go to jail now for the things that we said back then. But yeah. So a couple years as a drill sergeant, and then you went back to your regular MOS in the aviation.
Roger, we went back to the center of the universe at Fort Bragg. And then we did one tour, my last tour in Afghanistan. And then I did one tour in Fort Rucker as an acting first sergeant on Shell Army Airfield.
Yeah.
I completed, yeah.
I hated that term, acting first sergeant. And I've had a lot of, I spent quite a few years as a first sergeant, and I'd have E7s or usually in stuff that would be, telling me they were like, I'm the acting first sergeant so and so, and I used to, somewhere along my career, someone had taught me this, and I kind of carried on the same term. But I would look at them and say, "You ever had an acting ass chewing?" And they would usually look at me and go, "No."
Yeah.
I said, then there's
That's
no
right.
such thing as an acting first sergeant. You're either top or you're not. Like, I don't, no matter what stripes you have on. If you're the first sergeant, that is the position you are in. And they usually kind of get a smile on their face, going, "Okay, yeah, I get it." I'm like, "No such thing as an acting ass chewing from a sergeant major or colonel or whatever else." I said,
No, it's for real.
"Yeah,
It
yeah,
is for real. And I had some really good sergeant majors there. Everyone called me top while I was there, even though I only had the dual rocker going on.
yeah."
But Sergeant Major Turner is apparently a pretty big name, and she was calling me top all the time too.
Hey, you got something attacking you there. I thought that cow's about to flip you over.
I thought she was too.
Well, everyone wants to get on the show. That's okay. Who do we got?
Yep.
Who do we got back there?
That would be Spaz. That would be one of my sons. We have to have it when he was 3 years old. So,
Mm.
and she's still kicking. So there she is.
Well, she seems to fit the name well.
Yeah,
So,
she's interesting.
but good deal. Well, yeah. So you retired how long ago?
I retired back in 14
Okay.
out of Shell, and that's actually, I guess, what we're here to talk about. Um, I did the whole VA, went through the VA, and I did the DAV to get me set up, and that's when it actually came out that I was a mild grade of PTSD myself. Uh, I wasn't a door kicker. I don't want to take anyone else's job away from them. Um, but I had still seen some things that apparently had kind of affected me, and I didn't even realize it. Just kind of did what everyone else did and kind of wrote it off. But it was the way that they figured it out was my anger issues. I was real bad with the anger. It would flip off. You get those cheap electrical sockets, electrical light sockets, and when they get old, they get floppy. They just flip off and on real stupid easy. And that was kind of how the anger was going at the time. And I there was actually a time when I almost became one of those that statistic
Yeah.
with the 22.
Right.
So I was also going to college at the time, using the GI Bill to get me through until the VA decision was made. And at a study group, one of the hippie girls at the college handed me a joint in Texas, of all places, which is a really not a good place to be caught with marijuana at the time. Uh, I didn't have Uncle Sam to report to anymore, so I went ahead and I smoked it. And that's when I realized that getting 4 hours of sleep a night wasn't normal. And I went to sleep, and I don't think I moved for 8 hours straight. And then when I woke up, it was like a totally different world when you actually when you're not so tired anymore.
Right. And you were not sleeping because of just irritability and just not able to relax, or what was
I
keeping
don't, I really don't even know when it started, Troy.
you?
I don't know, but I was averaging about 4 hours a night, and that was unless I was getting drunk, and I mean drunk. And the drinking, that's not good for you, not when it's every night.
Right. Absolutely. The okay, so you were in Texas at the time. Toby, I just realized something, and while John's talking, he sounds very close, but looks very close to our good friend Rusty Bradley, doesn't he? He
He like a definite he could pull off the look.
he could. I think we got him and Rusty together. People would think they were seeing like twins, except maybe Rusty's a little bit better looking.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
besides
he
that,
could go pick up Rusty Bradley's action figure.
yeah,
He could go pick up Rusty Bradley's action hand out like the neighborhood and be like, pretend it's him. I don't think that's stolen valor. Like, I don't think it's stolen valor if you give out an action figure that kind of looks like you and we're in the military. It's like, it could be me.
yeah,
I mean, this could be loosely based on my physique and my beard. Like, you might be
Yeah, I got you a little broken there, Toby, but yeah, we got it. Definitely. I think the difference is you can tell the difference between the Texas twang and that Georgia North Carolina twang. But I just realized I'm looking I'm like I feel like I'm talking to Rusty, but yeah. Um, anyway, so John, you kind of had that happen. You woke up. I mean, you at one point did you have this epiphany that hey, I spent my entire career in the military, which was of course very anti-marijuana, especially as drill sergeant, as senior NCO, and all that stuff. Did you kind of have this awakening, if you would, and think something here? I mean, did you jump right in both feet, or did it kind of come back to it at some point later? How did that transition?
That was, I instantly became addicted to sleeping because it just felt so good to actually sleep. Uh, so the other stuff started happening more slowly. When I got, for example, I was going to the hospital pretty regular trying to figure out why I couldn't lose weight because I couldn't. I was doing all the programs, tracking freaking every single calorie I ate, everything, doing everything. And the doctors didn't know why I wasn't losing weight. And I was actually growing. I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, I think I topped out before I finally got out at about 269, almost 270 pounds.
Wow.
At 5'9", I was a little bit thick, and so started smoking cannabis several months later when I was in college and doing it every night because I was addicted to sleeping and feeling good the next day because I wouldn't smoke during the day. I had school to go to. I had to study. I had to be smart, you know. But I would smoke it at night to sleep. About 3 months after I started doing that, my weight started dropping off, and it started dropping off really, really, really fast. Um, and like now, without even being on a diet, I don't count calories. I eat whatever the hell I want. I'm sitting at about 198 pounds now. So there's a lot of physical changes that were going on with my body when I became basically like a daily user.
Right.
So,
So the Doritos and cookies and ice cream and all the other munchies and stuff weren't they weren't hitting you. I'm assuming because you were
well, it
smoking and going to
had
sleep.
the munchies really has a lot to do with the strain you're smoking, and probably at the time I wasn't hitting the one with the strong munchies.
Mm.
So,
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was all. Huh.
you know,
Interesting. So so at some point you became a proponent or almost a champion of hey, there's something here.
there is.
I've
Yeah.
seen studies and stuff like that. I've seen people do reports on it, but you're probably the first person I know that's actually been going through it. I mean, at what point was it a turning point where like, hey, somebody's getting it wrong? This could actually be a possible remedy for folks dealing with PTSD, TBI, and a host of other issues.
Probably about the time I started realizing I was losing all that weight is when I realized that there's actually something medically here because there was a physical change going on with my body. And the last like science, like actual peer reviewed science performed on cannabis was in what, the 50s? Before a lot of theories, a lot of chemistry was understood as well as it is today. And because it was put as a Schedule One drug, these type of studies, actual science with actual doctors that aren't tied to some sort of company, just haven't been done and haven't been submitted for peer review. So even even the stuff that I point to, I always try to say it's anecdotal evidence because unless it's been peer reviewed, it's not evidence. But there is something there. And that's why I became a proponent because we need to find out what it is. How many people are having horrible lives because we won't actually try looking at science done by scientists, not advocates, even like myself.
Do you feel it's any better or more harmful than just drinking? Um, since a lot of people seem to turn to that.
Well, you can actually look at numbers in that. And numbers I like to lean to when you're making a decision for a whole population. To date, in the hundreds and thousands of years of cannabis use, a death directly linked to purely cannabis, not mixed with the crazy stuff, because we're not going to even talk about that, but talking directly about just cannabis, no deaths have occurred. However, how many deaths every year happen every year due to drunk driving, liver cirrhosis, the other things that happen to you with alcohol. Oh, that's the other thing. I don't drink anymore at all. I have the same beer in my fridge from 3 years ago when I moved in here.
So, John, Toby here. I just want to jump in real fast. I absolutely agree with the fact that I think marijuana being a Schedule One drug is asinine. When you have like cocaine that aren't even Schedule One, I completely agree with that. But I kind of want to circle back. You talked about like the science that was, pardon me, the scientific studies, and being that they were back in the 50s and the 60s. And I know that there's studies done then and now. However, I specifically want to ask, what do you think the actual benefit? What you said about your personal weight, your personal body transformation, but you know, post-traumatic stress and trauma injury, like what do you think the actual medical point of marijuana to that is?
Um, I couldn't hear like half your question, so I'm trying to piece things together here. You're trying to ask what the medical thing related to PTSD and what the actual direct link between the two is?
Correct.
Okay. I think I understand your question, and if I don't, then feel free to shift my course for me. Um, as I told Troy earlier, there's different strains that have different aspects to it. There are two when in the smoking world and the medical world, there's two basic strains. You've got indica and you got sativa. One of them is used a lot by creative people, people that use their brain for more artsy type things, musicians, stuff like this. And the reason for that is because it triggers parts of your brain, the creative part. Um, for that very same reason, it's actually many of those sativa types are actually not so good with people with PTSD. One of the big symptoms of PTSD is a symptom called racing brain. Troy, you're probably pretty familiar. You're probably pretty familiar with it. How you can troubleshoot a problem much faster than most civilians. Now, I'm sure you've seen it out in the real world already. Like you can do second and third order effects before they're done going through the first order effects. We've already been trained and we have this racing brain thing. And then you kick it off with PTSD, you start going down rabbit holes that none of us need to go down that aren't even really there. That's one of the issues with PTSD. And sativa will actually warp that, and it's not highly recommended for veterans with PTSD. However, the weed that y'all are more familiar with, the dopey me, ha ha ha, the Doritos, the watching stupid cartoons is indica. That's something that indica really gets into. People can remember the two because indica sounds like in the couch. Makes you lazy, makes you want to sit on the couch and not move. And a lot of the rush that you feel or you think you feel, the psychoactive effect, is actually your brain kind of slowing down. So the PTSD and the racing brain have also slowed down, giving you relief. So if that's answering the actual question or too long, I don't know.
No, I mean, you're not getting, the crux of my question. The crux of my question really is like, so everyone thinks that there's, like, I'm going to use the VA as an example. There's a serious issue with the over medication within the VA. There's all these anxiety pills. It's like, or medication, and there's these additional medications to counteract the side effects of the medications. So a guy or gal end up primary medications, and they got to take 10 to 15 supplementary medications to counteract those effects. So if marijuana kind of, depending on, like you said, using the appropriate the sativa, but the couch one in the couch. Physical repairing damage? Is it masking damage, or is it like kind of, yeah, I just don't feel bad anymore? And and I'm not saying this in a judgmental tone. It probably sounds like it's a judgmental tone, like, oh, hi, that's your business. But in the terms of like, making this a mainstream option to help
Right.
get guys that are suffering from post, I kind of want to know, like, what's it actually doing? Now I get the racing brain thing, but I mean, there's other items that kind of help that out, right? Like Ritalin and stuff like that. And I'm very naive. I'm not a subject matter expert, so I'm sure. But to me, I'm just okay. This is a big jump. I disagree with the Schedule 1 rating. I don't think it should be. It's a big jump to saying, hey, like, because we have hundreds of thousands of veterans that are post-traumatic stress, hundreds of thousands of non-veterans affected with post-traumatic stress. And I understand, like, in terms of addictiveness, dose, and such, but are we looking at changing our society that we're going to be having kids on cannabis at 12, 13 years old? Like, I'm just trying to figure out where what's the parameters, what's the borders to the political mission of changing its presence within society. It's our community.
I don't know if it's my system or yours, but we're breaking up pretty bad.
It's Toby's. He's having some audio problems. You're coming in clear, John. But yeah, just hopefully you got most of his question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the overview of the question, basically, you're concerned with admitting that Schedule 1's kind of ridiculous. However, you're also concerned with a basic shift, a huge shift of culture of our society into becoming more accepting to cannabis. Is that the overall gist of the question? Did I get most of it?
Yeah, I mean, the point I'm making is we're talking about issues like physiological and psychological effects that are within our community. However, we don't have exclusivity to them. So the majority of society also have these. How do you quantify who should get it and who shouldn't? What's the difference between you and a 12-year-old boy?
Okay, well, let me ask you a question because I know you said something about kids and being born on cannabis and things like this, and this is my thought on that. Fetal alcohol death syndrome, the babies that are born from mamas who couldn't stop drinking, and I find alcohol, when you look at the stats behind alcohol, to be much more dangerous. Are there effects?
Right. That's not.
We don't know.
That's not what I meant.
Okay.
I meant that where do you draw the line in, like alcohol has a line. There's a drinking age that says in the United States of America, you have to be 21 years old to purchase and to consume it. Some states have supplemental laws that say under the supervision of your parents, you can utilize. Other drugs, are prescribed by a doctor. But what we're talking about is a huge mainstream shift. Like, while the veteran community like to think that we have exclusivity on post-traumatic stress, and we have the exclusivity on, pain and suffering, we don't. And, like, do you think that the cannabis community or the industry are kind of bootstrapping on veterans with post-traumatic stress to try and pump through a greater agenda?
Okay. Okay. That is quite possible. In the business world, that would be the smart thing to do. And any businessman would tell you that they would try to do that. So I would say that the possibility of that being the case probably being pretty high. Does it? But my question is not necessarily if they profit from me as a veteran, because I don't care who profits from me. I care what people can give me in return for what they profit, you know. And for me, as a single, because the other thing that hasn't been talked about is I'm a single dad. I don't have a mom or I don't even have a girlfriend to help me with raising a 12-year-old boy. Now, before, when I had rage issues and I would on so fast, I would rage so fast, and that's not good for a little boy, you know. So I, yes, they profit from me, but I profit from them as well as a veteran. It makes me calm. It calms me down, and I'm not a raging asshole to my son, so it's a win-win for me.
Yeah, I think a good thing that Toby brings up is just the fact that are they using the veteran community to parlay and try to become more accepted in mainstream society versus they're not out at the hospitals and psychological clinics out there trying to say you should try smoking weed, because they kind of using the veterans as a test bed, right? And
That's kind of true. I will tell you that it wasn't the VA, it wasn't anybody else, except for um, a private person, not anyone that was going to profit from telling me that suggested, hey, go try cannabis. That's before the hippie, and I said no. Then the hippie handed it to me. Now I had it in my hands. Kind of hard to say no when it's sitting there staring at you in the face. So
yeah, it's becoming, LA just they just approved it's going to be for recreational, even though California is pretty much recreational use anyways. It was a check the block to say it was medically prescribed, but we see it becoming, of course, Colorado. It is
mhm.
allowed. State of Washington, now LA, and quite a few other places. It's coming across the country. Uh, do you think, as we all know, there's a number of people that claim they have a medical issue to need it. But now we're also starting to see some states. I saw a report the other day, and I know some other places that if you have medical marijuana prescription, you can't even own a pistol anymore.
Mhm.
So
Ooh.
yeah, that's I think that's in the case of New York, but I think I just saw it the other day in Illinois or Ohio just passed a law that if you have medical marijuana, you cannot own a gun. Um, I mean, Second Amendment.
That'll be a huge fight in
Yeah,
Congress
yeah,
because someone like me, they come try to take my guns. Hey, I haven't done anything to lose my freaking right to firearms.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a state law, right? So it's a 10th Amendment thing. So if a state passes that law, it won't even go to Congress. It could go to the Supreme Court if someone's suited up that way. But I mean, if a state says, "Hey, we issue your pistol permit and we say you can't have it if you have there," then does it put a veteran or a person's in conflict, right? Do I get to exercise my Second Amendment, protect my family, and have my security, or do I get this that I need to have prescribed, or do I just get this that I need illegally and still keep my pistol? It definitely
Well,
depends on the point.
I know in Colorado, the concealed carry people, you cannot be an active red card owner, which is the medical marijuana card owner, and have a concealed carry license.
Okay.
So it's like myself, I never went and got my concealed carry because if it's time for me to carry a pistol, everyone's going to be having one anyway. Um, so I don't worry about concealed
So
carry
it's kind of
myself.
it's kind of the same thing. You can still have a pistol, you just can't be a concealed carry.
Right.
Okay.
So concealed carry, that's all. Yeah, that's something that's a little something extra most states have to give you, even though, the House is doing that thing right now about making a reciprocity bill for the whole union.
Right.
So
Did you have something, Toby? Yeah, I thought I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I kind of want to circle back a little bit. The so the effects, and I'm playing devil's advocate here
mhm,
a little bit, and I'm going to poke you, John. Don't be offended. I'm just going to poke you a little bit here because this I'm very curious about the subject, and it's
mhm,
kind of a volatile one, right?
mhm,
So some of the things that you talked about um, is the same argument that people are using for service dogs.
mhm,
All right. So like, the service dog calms me down. The service dog, provides me comfort. The service dog, you know, is able to see when my, testosterone levels are elevated and I'm going to rage and it, pause me down. The with that argument, do you think that, is this an option for everyone? Is this something that should be blanketed? Because if it's something that should be blanketed, then, every dude and lady that serves in the military is going to be walking around with a dog here in a second.
Mhm.
Well, 50% of them kind of want but the point I'm making is like, so what separates this from, and I don't want to say that the dogs are a fad. If you go to a SHOT Show, you'd think it is, but what do you think that separates, this cannabis argument and dilemma from other issues? Because I'll be honest with you, like straight up, I am not sold on it.
Mhm.
Like I have a ton of soldiers, I got probably 4 or 5 messages today um, from guys that served with me, for me, or around me, asking if they could call in and ask questions. And because and I've gone, on trips with some of these guys, and some of them are wake and bake guys, some of them are not quite at that intensity, but I'm just not sold on it.
Mhm.
Like I'm just not sold on it. One of the reasons I'm not sold on it is because I think it's like the dog. Myself, I think it's like the dog because the argument, it's the same dog argument, and I'd like to see a guy get better and not mask it.
Right.
However, I, the caveat and the paperclip here is that mine isn't that bad.
Mine,
Like
mine,
and
mine officially isn't that bad either. The VA
and so
officially put me at 30%, so I'm not that bad on the PTSD myself. But I was only getting 4 hours of sleep. Now, I don't want to tell any soldier
okay,
or any active, any retired or ETS soldier what to do medically with their life because there has been
right.
no real science done, and that's a big thing for me. I want real science done, not what Billy Bob said happened. But so until that point happens, I'm a guinea pig for myself, and I can tell you what it has done for me. I think at the end of the game, in 10 years, when all of it's at least decriminalized across the country, I figure in about 10 years, it's going to end up being an individual call. But I will remind people that we have soldiers that are popping bullets in their heads in the hospital VA because they weren't
That's
being
true.
seen, or because of the opiates that they've been overdosing on, or the cocktail, or that I don't do.
Yeah.
Now, like I said before, I'm not that bad. Um, and I'm not a daily wake and bake guy. Maybe on my days off I do, but when I'm working, I don't work until I come home. I did tonight, because I have to keep my head straight because I want to make good stuff with what I do in my career, which is a cannabis grower. So I'm elbow deep into the whole industry thing. But in the end of the game, it'll be your
So
individual.
let's let's I'm glad you brought that up because we in your bio I can't remember if we mentioned that on the air or not. So not only are you like personally attached on the therapeutic side, you're personally attached on the enterprise side.
Yes,
So
I realize
can you explain the enterprise side to it?
the reason why I was very specific with the dispensary that I work for. I only applied to one job, and I just kept applying to them. Make them tell me no, and I made them tell me no a lot before they finally said yes. Why did I pick them? I knew that it helped me as a veteran. If it helped me, most likely there's other veterans that it can help, and I can turn around and use my knowledge of learning because I learned how to grow it to grow. Right now, we're like number 2 in the city, so we're pretty good, and we do a large portion of the dispensary profits go to Wounded Warrior. I'm about to suggest that they maybe split some off to the DAV as well, and actual enterprises that help wounded soldiers. We can't help active. We can't support active soldiers coming in. I was an acting first sergeant. How many people did I fry for that bullpup?
Right?
That'd be hypocritical, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, once they got a DD 214, if it helps them and they want to use it, they want to be the people to help them do it. And so that's why I talked them into first donating to Wounded Warriors because everyone knows Wounded Warriors, and now I'm going to talk them into doing DAV with a portion of the profits. So that's why I got into the enterprise part, and that's why I picked that dispensary because they were very pro-veteran.
So, John, let me ask you. So, when you got out, I don't know what your career plans were, what you thought you were going to do. I'm going to go on an assumption here and say, you didn't get out and say, I got to find a place where I can grow some pot and be paid for it legally. At what point did you say, was it, were you trying to find other jobs and couldn't find anything? Were you just enjoying a retired check and didn't need one? Or did you sit there and say, did you sit there and go, okay, hey, I believe in this. I'm part of this. I think this helps some people. And hey, I happen to live in a state where it's cool, so I'm gonna just go down this path and maybe even learn some skills myself. I mean, at what point did that happen?
Well, the point happened to me when I got out. I was just like every other first sergeant. I was rah rah ree, freaking Merca, follow all the Uncle Sam's rules. And I went back home to Wichita Falls, Texas, which has been depressed economically since I was a kid, and that was a hot minute from now. So I couldn't find a job there, and then that hippie handed me the joint, and I got stoned, and I slept for 8 hours, and I felt like a new man the next day. That's when I learned to grow. I bought books about it, and I was reading it, and I was reading it, and I was reading it. The other issue that was my special issue, two issues. Texas is still reefer madness state. Okay, everyone over there hates the evil marijuana cigarette. And then the other issue is that I was a single dad, and my son's mom has moved back to Germany. So if I go to jail, he's out. And that has to be part of your thought process if you're supposed to be a responsible adult. So I packed up my stuff, put it in a trailer, and I moved to Colorado Springs because I knew it was legal there, at least on the state level. Of course, they got the memos from Obama that Trump hasn't reneged yet on, and that is, told the DOJ not to push it in the states that are legal. That's basically what I'm hinged on right now.
And do you find any just, and I don't want to get too personal. If I go down this path, you tell me. We don't have to go this, but I mean, I'm just wondering if your son, being 12 years old, I mean, have you sat down and had a talk with him just like a parent would do about alcohol, or has he asked you about it?
That's exactly how I played it because and that's where I started going when I was talking earlier. Alcohol, from what I've understood and read, is more dangerous. There's actual diseases based on over alcohol consumption, but there's not for over cannabis consumption. And the state, and being the state as and also the federal, has established 21 years old. That's pretty much the go-to rule. Yeah, there's the supplementary rules where if you're in the presence of your parents, you can have a wine or whatever. But the actual rule is like 21 years old that everyone understands. That is the rule for recreational weed in Colorado as well, as 21. Now, when I was 12, my dad was drinking his beers and his whiskeys in front of me, and he was telling me all about it. Wasn't hiding it. It was normal, and I did the typical in Fort Richardson, Alaska, drunk every freaking night thing. But I grew out of it, and I'm not an alcoholic now. I just feel like just treat it socially the same way you do alcohol, and you'll be doing just fine.
Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting way to put it. I mean, if you do kind of treat it along the same way, are you any concerns about it being a gateway drug? We've heard that term for years. I mean, I've heard it my whole time. People have said it's a gateway. It jumps you into other drugs, and there's no doubt that there is enough factual evidence and probably that have affected many lives, if not almost everyone in our listeners, have known someone that maybe started that way, but then they jumped onto coke, or they've done this, or they got now into meth, or whatever else. I mean, is there any concern? Do you find yourself anytime? It sounds like you've got your wits about you. You have responsibility as a dad. You ever find yourself like, oh, I should try something a little bit more, or get something? Maybe let me sleep a little bit longer, or not had that?
I don't have the urge to sleep longer than I do. Now I go to bed at 10:30 at night, and I'm up usually before my alarm at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's normal. That's about 8 hours. I feel fine. I'm not tired all day. So yeah, I don't know. There is the issue. The people do get. You got addictive personalities anyway, and you had them in the military, and they were the ones that were coming to work drunk. And You know, they were the
What?
ones that were
You
doing
were coming to
spice.
you were coming to work drunk? Not in Alaska, right? Please tell me it wasn't up
Oh
there.
no, no, I would never, when you were my boss, do that. That would be the wrong answer.
Right.
So never would do that.
That's why I had you pushing all the way to China. I had to sweat it out of you.
Had to sweat it out of me. Well, your boy, you know, Sergeant Major Sneed, my first battalion run, he ran right next to me, told me, Private McDonald, you fall out of my run, it'll be the worst decision you ever made in your life. I didn't fall out, but I puked all over the dude behind me or in front of me.
It's all
Yeah,
right. You finished.
I finished. I died, but I finished. So yeah, it was good.
So yeah, I mean you know it'd be interesting to see. You know the states and the feds are in a weird spot. I know when Washington and Colorado made it legal, the military came out and said it may be legal in that state, but you're still on taps, right? You also know that if you try to apply for security clearance, that is a significant question they ask you, regardless of what level of clearance you apply for, secret, TS, or anything more than that. Do you think, you know, do you see a shift? Do you think that's going to change? And or do you any idea why they consider that a risk? I mean, is someone that goes home and drinks every night less of a security risk than someone that goes home and fires up a cigarette?
Well, I mean that's debatable. You know, I we could argue that question all day long. I know that there are certain people that when they're drunk, you can't trust them farther than you can throw them. I know other people that when they're drunk, like stupid drunk, they're just as good as when they were stone cold sober. So, man, that's really an individual question. You can't really make that a blanket law, you know. I do understand, however, aviation because that's what I was doing. I understand federal government jobs. Hey, a no is a no. You want that job, you're just going to have to stay off the weed. You know, the devil's lettuce is bad for you. Stay away from it. But other jobs, you know, Burger King, even the bookkeeper dude, as long as he ain't stoned. And really, some dudes, when they're stoned, they get pretty analytical. So they might actually be good at it. But I wouldn't suggest that during work time. That's why I don't go to work stoned, just like alcohol.
So like that's an interesting point, right? Because in terms of replacing other medications, those other medications are designed for you to take and function normally at all times,
Yeah.
right? So I you know, and I'm not trying to cherry pick your situation because you know I got to be honest with you. I was raised by a single father. I know the challenges that a single father races. I remember being 12 years old and looking at my dad, you know, to solve all the problems in the world. So like, you know, I appreciate the position that you're in, but it's an interesting dilemma that you know you not specifically, but the industry and the drive they're seeing within the veteran community is to normalize the utilization of marijuana as it would be for any other substance that they're consuming in terms of medication.
Well, there's
Which
something
is
that we're
not
not talking
which is
about.
not like, hey, I'm going to go to work and after a long day I'm going to go home and get high. No, it's
Right.
like I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to get high because I need to do a function at 10:30 in the morning. I'm going to step outside my office and I'm going to get high. And then I'm, you know, like at 2:45 in the afternoon after lunch, you know, when I'm coming back down and, you know, I'm starting to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling, I'm going to get high again. And, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, this isn't a personal situation. It's going to be a standard. And that's for me, like the scary bit, like the amount of time and effort I want to question, you know, are we missing another opportunity to find healing? Are we missing another opportunity to develop something?
That's why I want the
Because
science so bad. That's what scares me. What if that's something that
yeah,
can help so many people, but we don't know the science because we have it so restricted? So, um, what was that first question that you asked again?
but
I had a good answer for it.
but what the the point I was trying to make was if this is going to be a replacement for functionality, like
Oh,
I need this to function.
in the daily use,
That's
right?
different than I'm not going to work and getting high. That's like I need to get high so I can go to work.
Right.
You know, well, and there's probably a million golf courses across America that 90% of the employees are like, I got to get high.
Yeah.
do its job.
Yeah, there's a lot of it in Colorado Springs. But so here's the thing: there's three different chemicals that's used on the
This is
medical side of cannabis, and two of them are the psychoactive ones, and it's two different types of THC. Everyone knows the abbreviation THC. The other abbreviation acronym that's used when you're talking about cannabis medicine is CBDs. And we're starting to see that, nationally via Facebook and all these other things about the CBD oils that are legal even in the reefer states. Epilepsy, for example, is a huge disease that is helped tremendously by the CBD oils that come from the marijuana plant.
For sure.
CBD has no psychoactive effects. You could drink a gallon of it, you're going to feel the same, maybe a little sick, kind of like drinking, some of the oil your grandma used to pour down your throat. But that'd be about it. The THC is the psychoactive and the high, the stony, the weird guy, that guy, you know. And that effect for a new person that just started on, if they're just doing with just the flower, I usually about 4 hours of that. Me, it takes about 2 hours now because I'm a daily user, so I have a high tolerance. Um, and that's why I use it at night. There are other effects that go with this, the smoking of the cannabis, and they are more lingering, but you don't feel them and you don't react on them. Cannabis has the CBDs, especially, and some of the THCs have been shown to be positive in Parkinson's. I think California actually made it legal to be medical for Parkinson's now. And my dad, he's kind of a reefer madness guy too. He knows that I grow, of course, because I don't hide anything. But he won't try it, and he's real bad at Parkinson's. You can see all the videos, the people, and of course that's anecdotal evidence. And it just makes you want to try when you see your own loved one suffering like that. So I don't know. The psychoactive effects, I agree, that shouldn't be at work. You don't need to be driving like that. That's why I say treat it like alcohol. But there are a lot of effects that are afterwards that last over a day. And some of them build up over time, kind of like your Motrin, and that's why you had to take those, 1,600 milligrams a day for a month. Um, yeah, I saw the smile. So it's the same. It's kind of the same idea where it kind of builds up.
So on the science note, if you were to target to do the scientific study on, what would it be? Would it be the sleep? Would it be the brain racing as you spoke of earlier? Would it be like what if you want to see the science? So where would you target the science to answer your questions?
Well, that's almost like two different questions. Me personally, because of what I experienced, I think the sleep was the biggest change in my life of all the different things that it didn't eventually start affecting. But if you start talking about society rules and how we're going to be shifting our culture, the smart thing, the actual intelligent thing would be the actual do the research and find the numbers of where the most pain is at and start there. Because if there's a lot there, it's probably easier to study.
Fair. That's fair. Troy?
Yep. Sorry, I'm messing with the video stuff. No, I mean, I think it's interesting, John, that you've gotten into the the industry itself, and that you're working in it. And I'm just curious, do you see yourself? I mean, are you looking to start your own one day? Are you looking to do your own, have your own shop, if you would?
Well, eventually I would. I got to move a little bit further west, get out of the plains and actually in the mountains. In a perfect world, I would love to find a small mountain town with enough patience so that I could grow a couple plants and give myself something to do. Financially, I don't necessarily need the job, but you got the arrogant part that wants to own your own business. You want to be your own man. Old McDonald Farm sounds awful good.
It does. It has a ring to it. No, I mean if you've been studying up on it, you said you read a lot of books, which I'm impressed because when I knew you, wasn't sure you could read, but that's a whole different story. The that's why we started you as an ammo bearer, I think. Um,
Oh,
and but no, it's I mean it's obviously you've put a lot of personal time into this, and I would imagine like anything else, anyone else that is a chef or grows something or does this, you have different ways to do things, you have different things to try out and techniques. I just wondering if you were kind of your job now, you're building some skills. If one day you would look to do that. Um,
oh yeah. My boss. First off, he's the first grower boss that I've had, and he's very good about reteaching when you screw up, just like you did as a squad leader and a section sergeant. The screw ups, you gotta knock them in the head and you gotta retrain them. So, and he's real good at doing that. He's taught me a whole lot. But as you get older and you get more experience, as you know, there's always things that you want to do that your boss doesn't want you to do. And right now he's my boss, and those are his girls in the back, so I have to follow his rules. But yeah, man, I would love to try my own ideas.
yeah, I would imagine so. But yeah. Well, hey man, is there? We've covered a lot tonight. I think we hit on Toby a lot of things that we wanted to chat about. John, is there anything you wanted to just let our listeners and viewers know that with any dealing with this subject or anything that we haven't talked about that you think would be interesting or educational for them to know?
Well, I really just say when it comes to the use of cannabis for medical issues, that is going to break down to be a personal thing. I know it's helped me a lot. Um, I don't know. I guess that would really be pretty much it. I'm an advocate for it. I'm very pro cannabis, but I don't want to be, the drug pusher guy. So, other than that, that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for coming on, joining Toby and I tonight on Stu and the Nun. It was an interesting topic. It's definitely the first time we've ever went after this topic and talked about it. I got to give a big shout out to our good friend and other former soldier, our old platoon leader, Doug Mullen. He was actually the one that gave me the idea last week. We were chatting, and he said, you should have John on. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. We just thought about the topics, and then we both knew you were not short of opinion. Um, so I got to give him a shout out because it was definitely his idea. So, anyways,
All right.
John, thank you so much for giving us some of your Tuesday night and coming on the show, and appreciate it. And let me know if you ever have anything coming up and you get your own business, you're ready to go after it. We'd love to have you back on.
All right. Sounds good. Good talking to you, Troy.
All right, buddy. Good talking to you. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, everybody. That's Mr. John McDonald. And hey, it doesn't get any better than that, I guess. If you're looking to get into the business, he's the guy, huh, Toby?
Yeah, no, like I really enjoyed his quick little especially cool. No, it's such a volatile subject. It's gone to Congress a couple of times in a couple of different forms, and I myself am extremely curious about it. One, on I, I see my soldiers engaging in it. I hope it's good for them. Like I've had some really positive, stories come out of it. I think John just shared a really, positive story about some stuff. But, I don't, what do you call it, reefer madness or whatever. I don't think I'm afflicted with reefer madness. But what I think I'm afflicted with is like concern. And
Right.
concern is like not that you smoke weed, you're going to turn into a zombie. I think the concern is like, is this just thing that's not gonna, while it might help a symptom, does it help the problem? Um, you know, and I'm just really nervous about anything that's psychotropic. I'm very nervous about any of that stuff, and the reason for that being, like we we have a lot of our brothers and sisters that make the decision to take their own lives. You know, we're talking, one of the hot topics that we're not going to really dive into. It's like the transgender issue within the military, and this isn't about trying to exclude anyone a demographic from trying to serve. It's about, the best interest of the force, and the best interest of the force is to not have one of the highest demographics in terms of suicide ideation in its ranks. Right. And, so it's like the same thing. It's like, man, I just get really nervous about this stuff because, I want the force to be well. I want our brothers and sisters to be well. If this is something that can truly help them, I'm going to be standing there, beside them, making sure that they get what they need. And, and because I want, I was trying to explain to someone at the VA the other day, and it's just very personal. It's like, it's not about a benefit. This is about, the difference between feeling better and being better. And if you're asking me if I feel better, I want to be better. Like if feeling better is the only option, well, okay, I guess I'll take it. For me, and what I'd like to see leading the charge, leading the discussion, leading the narrative, leading the dialogue, isn't feeling better. And if medical marijuana can lead to guys being better, and there's science to say like yes, they can be better, I'm on it. If it's just a feeling better thing, well, like we got puppies and kittens and guinea pigs, and we got AR.
Well, I think John hit it.
We got motorbikes.
Yeah, I think John hit it right when he said, there's and I was glad to hear him say it was that there's science. There's got to be science behind it. Until there's science behind it, it's a whole bunch of opinion.
Absolutely.
And none of us are short of that. So the I think that's to each their own, right? Some people go into yard landscaping to relieve stress. Others turn to the bottle. Others get into high adventure sports. Others focus on their family. I mean, I think all of us, as much of one thing about the military, we all agree, right? You will not find a better example of diversity than the U.S. military, because there's nowhere.
Not one bit.
There's no other industry, and there's no other part of our world that you bring together so many diverse folks of every race, background, upbringing, income, and everything else into one tightly grouped area in which they have to work together, get along, work along, and everything. So just as much as we're all different, and you bring a platoon together of infantrymen or a platoon of whatever, you have all these different, we all seen it. There's only things I say it all the time. Something would happen, I'd be like, only in the Army. Only in the Army you see something like this, because you bring all these unique people together. At the same time, we all have unique things to how we do this stuff, right? You bring a guy that's Canadian, and a guy that's from Texas, and another one's from New England, and a couple folks in Nebraska, and a dude from Puerto Rico, and you put them all in a squad or section together, you're gonna have some good times and some memory-making moments, right? So
yeah, a documentary called Bad Voodoo's War.
That's right, Bad Voodoo's War. That's right. Go check it out. I think you can still find it on somewhere, right?
Yeah, no, badvoodoo'swar.com, I think.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean that's the same thing. So we all different things treat us, right? Different. You and I know John's the same way. It's got to be the same way. And the fact that even from when I retired in 2009, I even take it back farther. When I got out of active in '96, when I retired out of the Army completely in 2009, to today in 2017, I've had different things that have helped me or motivated me or been new drivers in my life of what I thought was most important and what I valued, right? When I got out of
and I gotta
go ahead.
Yeah, and and that's the thing is that I really enjoyed the conversation with John just now, because I like that approach. I think he's taken a very mature approach to it. I think he's taken a realistic, his wings are very level, pardon the pun because he was in aviation, but he's taken a very level-winged approach to, okay, this is what's helped me. This is my predicament. I tremendous respect for the guy as a single father, and then having this at the same time. There's so many different things that layers to his situation, but need is like the wings level approach. Okay, what's the end state? Not like so many of our community where they're not looking at the big play. They're very micro, and they're thinking about what's 10 feet in front of their face, and what's past 10 feet, doesn't matter because they're not there yet. And it's great to see guys, whether I agree with them or not, but there's great to see guys or people in an industry that are looking at it objectively like that. And like, I'm on the fence. I haven't decided one way or another. If I was to lean off the fence, it would be, I'm not an advocate for it because I just don't see the science yet.
Right.
Because it's not there.
Right.
If the science comes, then like, I'm going to listen to it, just like I would listen to the science of other things. But I'm glad that some of the people that are involved in it are looking at it objectively, and it's not like a guy that just is like, well, I just think it'd be cool to be high. Well, yeah, it's cool to ride your motorcycle 130 miles an hour too, but every now and then there's a corner.
Yeah.
And
a sharp one at that. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Hey, well, we've been going a little over an hour. I don't know if there's anything you want. Your audio's still having some issues. I don't know why. But it is definitely. I think the boys on the internet.
I blame Owen, for my bad audio, for sucking the bandwidth of the home office.
Yeah, I think.
But no, some great stuff. Lots of interesting topics. And I think we're not done with the subject. I think we're going to have to have John back on again. I'd like to hear from some other folks on it as well, because it's an interesting topic. It's a hot spot, and like, we're about to see just a plethora of legislation flowing into the House, trying to change this situation.
Yeah. Hey, well, before we go, I just want to mention a couple things. One, don't forget, check out Enlist 9 Fight Company. Our main sponsor here. They make great stuff. Absolutely. Right. They make great shirts. So check them out. Of course, we talked about it the other day. We're getting down near the end of the year. A lot of people are looking for tax breaks and where they can make some donations for nonprofits. There's no shortage of ones that we totally support and endorse. Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Veteran Outdoors, Pinups for Vets, Fisher House, all great. Hero Labradors, all great nonprofits that if you're looking for, get a few more tax breaks in there to donate to, because as you're winding down to the last couple weeks of the year. I just want to say I will not be here next week. I am on a top secret mission I can't talk about. That I will not be here, and I think the week after, Toby, it'll be the 26th. I think, are we taking that Tuesday off? I believe. The week of Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this will be my last show with you in 2017. We have some big announcement 2018. I actually have a very important. I didn't even talk to Toby about it yet. A very important topic that we're going to talk about right after the first of the year. It's another kind of just a very important topic that I think is really important, and we talk about with our listeners and viewers and a lot of folks. And so this will be my last one with you guys this year. Toby will be on next week, and then we'll take the 26th off and let everyone enjoy time with their families, reset and recharge on this Christmas and holiday season. That, Toby? Got anything else?
No, be sure to check out social media. Follow us on Twitter at Lou Hammer, at Toby Nunn, at Stu the Nunn, as well as be sure to subscribe to us on the Tube of You.
Yep, hit us on all our.
Check us out on Skinny if you haven't taken the time to.
Yeah, sorry you cut out there. Yeah, just hit us on all of our socials, like our page, share our page, and with all that said, everybody, you have a great night, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you for joining another episode of Spoon the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. See you next sponsors. publishing